It is February in the year 1400. We are in London. A bitter winter chill hangs over the River Thames, and the air is thick with the smell of burning sea coal, damp wool, and wood smoke. England is holding its breath. The nation has just survived a monumental shift in power. The anointed king, Richard II, has been forced to abdicate, and his cousin, Henry IV, has taken the throne. It is the dawn of the Lancastrian dynasty, and the capital is buzzing with a mixture of hope, anxiety, and deep political caution. Now, look down. You are hovering above a sprawling, densely packed labyrinth of timber, plaster, and soaring stone spires. This is Plantagenet, London. At this exact moment in 1400, it is a recovering city of roughly 40,000 to 50,000 people. The scars of the Black Death from a half-century ago are still visible in the form of empty, overgrown garden plots scattered within the city walls, but the surviving population is wealthier, more ambitious, and more socially mobile than ever before. In this video, we are using AI and medieval civic records to strip away the modern skyline. We are dropping you directly into the year 1400 to walk the bustling, highly regulated streets of medieval London, examining exactly how this society functioned at the dawn of the 15th century. To understand London in 1400, you must realize it is actually two completely separate cities, connected by a 2-mile stretch of muddy road called the Strand. To the east is the walled city of London, the engine of commerce, but to the west lies Westminster, the seat of royal government and law. Imagine walking into the colossal Westminster Hall. If you look up, you will see a breathtaking masterpiece of medieval engineering, the massive oak hammer beam roof, completed just months ago by the master carpenter Hugh Herland. It is the largest timber roof in Northern Europe. Down on the stone floor, the hall is packed, serving as the central law court of the realm. Lawyers in long robes converse in specialized legal French, meeting with anxious land-owning nobles. But a massive cultural shift is happening right here, in this exact year. For 300 years, the kings of England spoke French, but the new king, Henry IV, has just become the first monarch since the Norman conquest to claim the throne and give his speeches in the English language. English is finally becoming the language of power. Just outside this hall, living in a rented house within the grounds of Westminster Abbey, is a man named Geoffrey Chaucer. In 1400, he is at the end of his life, having spent years serving as a diplomat, a customs official, and a poet. He is putting the final touches on his masterpiece, the Canterbury Tales, capturing the exact voices of the merchants, knights, and millers wandering the streets outside his window. Look at the nobles walking through the palace courtyards. In 1400, fashion is strictly regulated by sumptuary laws, rules dictating exactly what you are allowed to wear based on your social class. The wealthy lords wear houppelans, massive, sweeping gowns made of imported Italian velvet or silk, lined with expensive squirrel or ermine fur. Their shoes, called poulaines, have toes so ridiculously long and pointed that they sometimes have to be tied to the wearer's knees with silver chains just so they can walk. Let's leave the royal court and travel east toward the commercial heart of the country. The wealthiest citizens don't ride horses through the muddy roads. They hire watermen to row them down the River Thames in small wooden boats called wherries. The Thames is the grand highway of the medieval era. As you approach the City of London, you are met with a formidable sight. A massive 2-mile-long defensive wall of stone and Roman brick standing over 15 feet high. You can only enter through heavily guarded gatehouses, like Ludgate or Newgate, where officials collect tolls on every cart of grain or barrel of wine entering the city. Once inside, you are in the domain of the guilds. The City of London is an independent financial powerhouse governed by the mayor and the powerful livery companies. Walk down Cheapside, the widest and most important street in the city. This is the medieval equivalent of Fifth Avenue. It is a bustling, incredibly wealthy market street. To your right is Goldsmiths Row, a stunning block of multi-story timber houses where the master goldsmiths craft chalices, jewellery and silver plates. The shops are open to the street, their windows unglazed so customers can see the craftsmen at work. The economy is heavily regulated to protect the consumer and the craftsman. If a baker is caught selling a loaf of bread that weighs less than the legal standard, he isn't just fined. He is strapped to a wooden hurdle and dragged through the muddy streets with the lightweight loaf tied around his neck as a public humiliation. But for all its strict guild regulations and heavy laws, London in 1400 is also a city of massive, fascinating loopholes. Imagine walking just a few streets north of the wealthy, highly regulated goldsmiths on Cheapside. You turn down a narrow, crowded alley, step over an invisible boundary line, and suddenly, the authority of the London mayor simply vanishes. You have just entered the precinct of St. Martin's-le-Grand. This is a sanctuary, a sprawling enclave right in the middle of the city that is owned entirely by the church. Because it is holy ground, the king's law and the city guards have zero jurisdiction here. If a bankrupt merchant fleeing his creditors, a runaway apprentice, or a political exile sprints across this invisible line, the armed guards chasing them must stop dead in their tracks. To arrest someone inside a sanctuary is a severe sin and a direct crime against the Pope. Because of this incredible legal loophole, St. Martin's-le-Grand operates as a bizarre, self-contained micro-city. It is a haven for outcasts, but also for rogue business. Because the powerful craft guilds are legally barred from entering to inspect goods, the sanctuary is flooded with unlicensed artisans. If you walk through this precinct, you will hear the constant tapping of hammers. Craftsmen here mass-produce cheap, imitation goods, most famously fake copper jewellery washed in a razor-thin layer of gold or silver, known by everyone on the streets as St. Martin's rings. It is a bustling, untaxed black market, operating right under the noses of the authorities. And in a crowded city like this, how do people know what is going on? There are no printing presses, no newspapers, and no broadsheets in 1400. Information is an entirely auditory experience. If you step back out into the main streets, you will inevitably hear the ringing of a heavy brass handbell. This is the official town crier. When the bell rings, the noisy street completely stops. The crier stands at major intersections to loudly broadcast the news of the day, announcing new royal proclamations from Westminster, detailing the updated price of wheat, or offering a silver reward for stolen property. But the real unfiltered news travels through the city's complex social network, largely run by women. While men dominate the major trade guilds, women are the backbone of the daily local economy. You will see brewsters, women who brew massive vats of ale in their own homes, hanging a green branch above their front door to signal to the neighbourhood that a fresh, legal batch is ready to be sold. If you look closely at the finer shops, you will also see the silk women. Unlike other trades, the lucrative business of weaving fine silk threads, ribbons and elaborate laces for the nobility is an industry entirely monopolised and managed by women. They take on female apprentices, run their own finances, and wield significant economic influence in the city. In 1400, London is not just a city of men in armour. It is a deeply interconnected web of gossip, black markets, and brilliant everyday people constantly finding ways to survive and thrive within the system. So how do everyday people actually live? Space inside the walls is so expensive that buildings expand upwards and outwards. The timber-framed houses use a technique called jettying. Each successive floor juts out over the street below. By the third story, houses across the alleyway nearly touch, blocking out the sun and creating dark, sheltered tunnels below. The streets hum with the constant shouts of apprentices. Young men in their teens, bound to master craftsmen for 7-year terms, stand outside the workshops shouting, "What do you lack?" to pull in passing customers. If you get hungry, you don't necessarily cook at home. Many of the poorer wooden houses don't have hearths due to the severe risk of fire. Instead, London has a thriving fast food industry. head toward the public cookshops along the riverbank. Here, for a single silver penny, you can buy hot meat pies, roasted thrushes, baked apples, and heavily spiced beef. To drink, almost everyone, including children, drinks ale. The water from the public conduits and the river can be unreliable, so mild, weak ale brewed from barley is the safest and most calorie-dense daily beverage. Every time a new batch of ale is ready, the local ale conner, a strict medieval quality control inspector, tastes it to ensure it is brewed to the legal standard before it can be sold. As the sun sets over the Thames, the entire rhythm of the city abruptly changes. Listen for the booming bell of St. Mary le Bow Church. This is the signal for the evening curfew, and it triggers a nightly transformation. Instantly, London goes into full lockdown. The massive, iron-studded wooden doors at the 6 Roman gatehouses, including Aldgate, Bishopsgate, and Ludgate, are slammed shut and heavily bolted by city guards. The heavy iron portcullises are lowered. If you are a travelling merchant or a farmer caught outside the walls when that bell finishes ringing, you are locked out for the entire night, forced to find a bed in the unregulated and often unpredictable suburbs. Inside the walls, the curfew, a word originating from the old French couvre-feu, meaning cover the fire, is strictly enforced. In a cramped, densely packed metropolis built entirely of dried timber, plaster and straw, an uncontrolled fire is the ultimate existential terror. Every householder is legally required to damp down their hearths. The city has recently passed strict medieval building codes banning thatched roofs in favour of clay tiles, and every neighbourhood ward must keep heavy iron hooks and leather buckets of water ready at a moment's notice. Once the fires are dimmed, the city plunges into an absolute suffocating darkness. There are no streetlights, no glowing signs, and no ambient city glow. If you look down a medieval alleyway at night, it is a solid wall of pitch black. If you absolutely must leave your house after the bells ring, the law dictates that you must carry a lit candle inside a translucent horn lantern. Wandering in the dark without a light is a literal crime. You will be immediately arrested by the authorities as a night walker. Patrolling these lightless, winding tunnels is the Night Watch. London does not have a modern police force. Instead, each of the city's 24 civic wards is guarded by ordinary citizens who are conscripted to take their turn walking the streets. Led by an official called a beadle, these watchmen carry lanterns and wooden staffs, spending the freezing night checking locked doors, listening for smugglers, and enforcing the strict nighttime silence. If they catch you breaking the rules, perhaps a baker caught working after hours, or a merchant disturbing the peace, the punishment is swift but designed for psychological impact rather than physical harm. The next morning, you will find yourself locked in the wooden stocks or the elevated pillory at Cornhill. Here, you are forced to sit for hours in the freezing cold while your neighbours laugh, jeer, and hurl rotten vegetables and mud at you. In a society where your personal reputation is your only credit score, this public humiliation is devastating. Dominating the centre of this dense wooden maze is a structure of unimaginable scale, Old St. Paul's Cathedral. Forget the rounded dome of the modern era. The St. Paul's of 1400 is a colossal Gothic leviathan. Its massive, lead-covered wooden spire reaches an astonishing 489 feet into the sky, acting as a compass point for travellers miles outside the city. Step through the intricately carved western doors. Inside, you will not find quiet, hushed reverence. The central nave of the cathedral, known as Paul's Walk, is essentially the central meeting hub of the city. Because it is the largest covered public space in London, the citizens use it for everything. Lawyers meet their clients at specific stone pillars to sign contracts. Merchants from Flanders and Italy negotiate the prices of imported alum and spices. Porters use the cathedral as a shortcut, carrying baskets of bread or driving mules right through the holy space to avoid the crowded streets outside. Yet, religion permeates every single aspect of medieval life. The calendar is entirely dictated by saints' days and religious festivals. In 1400, literacy is rapidly expanding among the merchant middle class. Near the cathedral, an entire street called Paternoster Row is dedicated to scribes, manuscript illuminators, and bookbinders who meticulously hand-copy prayer books for the wealthy citizens. London Bridge and the gateway to the world. Finally, all the wealth, trade, and energy of the city funnels toward one extraordinary engineering marvel: Old London Bridge. It is the only bridge spanning the Thames, and it is entirely unique. Built of stone, its 19 massive arches restrict the flow of the river so much that the water roars through the gaps like a waterfall. But it's not just a crossing, it is an entire floating neighbourhood. The bridge is completely lined on both sides with towering, multi-storey wooden houses and shops. There are over 100 buildings suspended over the rushing water. In the very centre of the bridge stands a beautiful multi-level stone chapel dedicated to St. Thomas Becket, where travellers stop to pray for a safe journey before leaving the city. This bridge is London's gateway to the world. At the docks just below it, massive wooden cog ships arrive from across the globe. They unload sweet wines from Gascony, fine armour from Milan, exotic spices like pepper, saffron and cinnamon from the Middle East, and luxurious Baltic amber. In return, London exports its most valuable commodity, wool. English wool is considered the finest in all of Europe, and the massive wealth generated by the wool churches and the merchant fleets is transforming England into an economic powerhouse. London in the year 1400 is not a primitive place. It is a highly organised, intensely regulated and deeply complex society. The people walking these streets are navigating political regime changes, strict class hierarchies, and an economy that is just beginning to transition from feudalism toward early global capitalism. They didn't have steel framing, underground subway networks, or modern sanitation, but they had an aggressive, unstoppable momentum. The wealthy guilds negotiating in Cheapside, the lawyers debating in Westminster Hall, and the international merchants trading on the docks were laying the absolute foundation for the modern Western world. This video is brought to you by the Paladin Learn History app.